to receive a blessing in this AYS. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Sister Charlie, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. How are we doing today? Are you good? Are you sure you're good? Are you very, very good? Why are you very, very good? Oh, that's a blessing. Why else are you very good? Why else? Anyone else is going to give me another reason? No? Pardon? Is the Lord's Day? Yes? I'm glad that I get to rest as well. That's always a blessing as well. Is the first slide up on the screen as yet? I got a call from Pastor Fuller asking me to do an AYS program at Balham on sex. And I said, okay. I've done it before for him, different AYS programs. And I sent through a poster, which I know not everybody was au fait with, and a lot of people were a bit confused by the title, I Am a Prostitute. And I thought that was quite an interesting thing. And so can I ask a question? Does the phrase, I am a prostitute, what emotion does it evoke? Please. Shame? Beautiful. Vulnerability, thank you. What else? Cheap? Yep. Come in. Does it? Sorry, I didn't see your lips move. Or did they not move? Yeah, I thought you said something. No? Okay, sorry. Eyes playing tricks with me. This afternoon, we are going to have a frank conversation. Are we okay to have a frank conversation? Yes. Yes? This conversation, when I use the word conversation, it means I'm expecting something back. I believe it's going to be live streamed, so if I'm asking that the cameras are kept on myself and not on anyone speaking, because I want you to be very open, because your opinion matters. You matter. You are important. There's somebody who may listen to this that needs to explore something within their lives based on the conversation we're going to have today. So the only disclaimer I would say at this point, because there's another one further down in the presentation, is it's okay to be you. Okay? Let's just say a word of prayer. Dear Jesus, fill me till I want no more. May the words that come from my lips this afternoon, dear God, be your words. Keep abiding in me, I pray these things in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. I didn't let you know who I am. I don't really like talking about myself, but I guess that's me, just being me. I am Charlie. Some of you may recognize my voice from Adventist Radio London, and I hope and pray that you all listen to Adventist Radio London. It's a wonderful station. It's led by Paul Lee. We have live shows. On the Sabbath, you will usually find me debating with your own Mark Gray. We also do an After Dark program. There's Ray Patrick as well that does a few programs. There's the morning programs, also the request show. So before I continue, I just ask you, please support your own radio station. We are doing a great work. There have been many who have been baptized. Share it with your friends. It's not always music. It's not always pre-recorded. There's lots of live programs that are for you by us. So please support Adventist Radio London. Right. Are we ready to get into the program? Yes? Okay. I am a prostitute. Who do you think we're talking about? Who do you think we're talking about? I am a prostitute. Rahab. Thank you very much. Okay, and Tamar. Tamar. But can I just say, this poster would have felt very different if I had put a Bible text under I am a prostitute, but I didn't on purpose, because that uneasy feeling that some people feel when they see those words, they have to realize that sometimes in life we feel uneasy about real life issues. Yeah? So, can I ask, is anyone confident at reading here? Confident? I've got the story of Rahab and the spies. It is really small. Wow. Is anyone confident at reading?
I am.
You are? Okay. I might give you my screen, because it might be easier for you to read.
I can sit down and see it from here.
You can sit down and see it from there?
I need the thing.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I stand up. Joshua 2, Rahab and the spies. 2. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab, bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut.
Sorry, let's keep going.
Oh, is there more?
Yeah, there is more.
Sorry.
There is more.
Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all of us who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites, east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted in fear, and everyone's courage failed because of you, for the Lord your God in heaven above is For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. So she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. She said to them, go to the hills so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourself there for 3 days until they return, and then go on your way. Now the men had said to her, "This oath you made us swear will not be binding on us, unless when we enter the land you have tied this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and unless you have brought your father and mother, your brothers and all your family into your house. If any of them go outside your house into the street, their blood will be on their own heads. We will not be responsible. As for those who are in the house with you, their blood will be on our head if a hand is laid on them. But if you tell what we are doing, we will be released from the oath you made us swear."
Last one.
"Agreed," she replied, "let it be as you say." So she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window. When they left, they went into the hills and stayed there 3 days until the pursuers had searched all along the road and returned without finding them. Then the 2 men started back. They went down out of the hills, forded the river, and came to Joshua, son of Nun, and told him everything that had happened to them. They said to Joshua, "The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. All the people are melting in fear because of us."
Thank you so much. Amen. Thank you so much. So, what an amazing story. But it started with telling us that she was a prostitute. Huh? She was a businesswoman. Okay, that's the Adventist way of saying she was a prostitute, right? She was a businesswoman. Okay, what was her business? Sorry. Let's get you to say this nice and loud.
Yeah, she was into catering, inviting, like a hotel and thing, but you have service as well. So, yeah.
Okay. And what was her service?
Making sure that your guests are really entertained and, yeah.
You see how we are as Adventists? You know what's the funny... Sorry. I'll let you speak on the mic. Hold on.
I did not deny her profession, but it's not just prostitution. She was also a businesswoman in terms of hotel and everything. So I don't want to limit her just to a prostitution.
But the Bible limits her to her prostitution, right? The Bible tells us that she was a prostitute, right? It does. But you're very creative. You must work in marketing because you marketed her very well. However, Yep. Hold on. We want to make sure everyone can hear you.
And Elder Clem is trying to make it good. And what we would say is that the statement, being she's bigger, is politically incorrect. Because today there are certain things certain words we don't use, things change. So he's in tune with, he's abreast of today's society, what they would say from what things were.
Okay, so sorry, hold on 2 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. In today's society, they will use sex work as part of it. Yeah, but I just didn't want to limit her just to nowadays thinking. So because to me, in order for having also, because she was affluent, I could sense that because people knew her. She's hospitable. Yes, there is that element of sex working, but there is also element where she knows everything about the city and good spots. Yeah.
So let me ask the question: was she knowledgeable about the city and she was known because of her work, or was she knowledgeable about the city because she was affluent? So I'm hearing both. Because as they said back in the day, a lady of the night, she has to know everything. So her knowledge, a lot of her knowledge, was actually, because there were other affluent people, but did they have the knowledge of the city as she did? So was her knowledge based on the fact of the work that she did, or was her knowledge based on the fact that of her affluence? Everyone's still saying both? Everyone's saying both. Okay, we can meet in the middle there on both. So let me ask a question. Why would the spies stop at the house of Rahab, a prostitute? Why?
She was very unpopular with her own people. Certain societies regarded her as a pariah, so they saw fit to go to her house.
Okay. Anyone else? Why would they stop at a prostitute's house?
I think because they were men and they were foreign men, and if they're foreign men, they're looking for something, so chances are they'll stop at a prostitute's house.
So hold on. So hold on. Let's break it down a little bit for me. Yeah. So did they go there because they were men and they were hoping to get lucky? Is that what you're saying, or did they go there for another reason? I just need to understand what you said. He's thinking about it.
Maybe because a prostitute would let them in without any questions. So, yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
I mean, I won't generalize about men, but the thing about it is she's lodging. You come to a city, you first go to an hotel or to a lodge, and then you ascertain information. So you have the element of, I need to have some place where I could sleep, but also interact and see. So, I mean, spy will go to where you have crowds and also specific, yeah. So, yeah.
So let's remember, they came for a specific purpose. Yes. Did they not come for a specific purpose, yes? Hi. This is one of my ARL family, sorry.
I guess she might be someone who would just know information, because she probably would have mixed with a lot of people. She might kind of know the word on the street. So if there's spies coming to find information, she actually might know stuff that might be useful for them.
Okay. So again, based on her profession, she had knowledge that maybe someone else who wasn't of her profession could potentially have. Yes?
Okay, I believe that this was all God's plan, because these are men of God, and Rahab, she knew something about God. And so therefore, when she actually got the spies to come in and actually told them how they could get away, then remember she's asked them, please remember me when you get, remember me when everything is okay. I'm putting it in my own words. And so, therefore, I think this was all the plan of God.
So it was all the plan of God to use a prostitute, a sex worker, she had a knowledge of God, I'm hearing. I'm coming.
Yeah, I do not wish to spiritualize everything, because to me, you want to go and spy on the city because you desire to take over that city. Okay. You want to get information about who you have to fight against. So you go to a lodge, you see, I mean, to me, I see Rahab as a businesswoman having a lodge, but also having a sex work element, business as well. So you have those two. In terms of meeting affluent people and being an affluent, in this world of sex working, it's sometimes taboo or secretive. So she could be trusted to keep information. You know, so at least she has information that she could share. There is that element that she knew about the God of Israel because of what took place throughout the journey of Israel. So yeah, but I don't want to spiritualize everything.
Okay, 2 more comments, and then I need to move on, only because this is just a hook. We haven't even started on our program yet.
I just came in looking at the question. I do have read the passage before, but what come to mind, if Rahab hid them, it would seem to me as if, well, probably they were searching the city and they were trying to catch them. And she knew if she hid them because of what they believe in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think them going to Rahab was more of a cover-up, because men always come in as a spy. You choose somewhere to go where men normally go, where people don't play a blind eye, basically. So I think it was more for a camouflage, that they were not able to detect them so soon or whatever, because we see people saw them and saw they were strangers and went and talked. And I think that's one of the reasons they must have gone there in order to camouflage themselves.
Thank you. I agree with you, because even in today's society, sex shops are always, there's lots of people that use those in society, but there's always the place that you can't, no one will question you if you go in. They'll let you they'll mind their business on what you go in. Yeah? So I agree with you. So let's go to the next. Oh, yes. Okay. Why would the spies stop at the house of Rahab, a prostitute? It was a good place to gather information and have no questions asked in return. Yeah? So imagine, she would have judges and high people in society would come and visit her, just as in this day and age. Yeah? But nobody would question that. Rahab's house was in an ideal location for a quick escape because it was built into the city wall. Because other people sometimes need to make a quick escape. Yeah? So it was an ideal location. God directed the spies to Rahab's house because he knew her heart was open to him and that she would be instrumental in the Israelites' victory over Jericho. God often uses people with simple faith to accomplish his great purpose, no matter what kind of past they have had or how insignificant they seem to be. Rahab didn't allow her past to keep her from the new role God had for her. Let's just sit with that for a bit. God uses ordinary people. Our past is not necessarily going to dictate our futures. Yeah? God sees, God knows, and it's your heart that's important. Jesus came from her, which is something important, yeah? And throughout the Bible, it keeps referring to Rahab as a prostitute. Yeah? Not an accident, not a typo, not an error. Why did God want us to know that? How important was the fact that Rahab was a prostitute?
It is proof that God isn't into perfection. He specializes in misfits.
Yeah? Yeah?
I guess for me, it's like no one is overlooked, because even when Jesus was dying on the cross, there was a thief on his left and right. And the Bible specifically lets you know that it was someone who obviously has done crime all their life. So it's just saying no one is overlooked by God.
No one's overlooked. It's very important. Yeah? It's very important. The fact that they tell us who they are. Yeah? They tell us this, that they make that announcement before they come to the room. I'm a sinner! And they enter the room. Yeah?
Which is kind of what I was going to say, but when you think about other people's judgment of the profession as well, it's also highlighting that God doesn't care about that. It's not about what other people think. He's looking at a person no matter who they are. But using someone who has a profession like that, which could be completely judged and seen as like the lowest of the low, is where he's way above that.
Right. So can I just let you know that we haven't reached the end of our program? Yeah? but I want you to remember this as we go into our next phase. We are not here to celebrate wrong, okay? So we're not sitting here and saying, woohoo, she was a prostitute. That's not what we're doing. We are here to praise God for our journey and to help others on their journey, okay? So this conversation is not about glorifying sin, glorifying wrongdoing, glorifying and say, well, it's okay if you can squeeze in a little bit. No, that's not what we're doing here today. We're here to encourage someone else, because everybody in this room has a past, has a present, and has a future. So, trigger warning. Look at me sounding all young. Right. Look after yourselves. I need everybody in this room to make sure you are looking after yourself. Why is that important? Because you are important. If anything that's discussed in this program makes you evoke some emotion from you, be honest about those emotions. Don't just hide them away or not deal with them. I need you also to spend time with Jesus if that's the case. Don't be afraid if things from your past pop into your brains today. Don't be afraid to talk to Jesus about it. Some people in this room have safe people. People who you can tell anything to, who you know is not going to go anywhere. You know the person that if you tell them today, it will be in the WhatsApp group tomorrow. Yeah? We're not talking about those people. We're talking about your safe people. Some safe people is Jesus, because they say, if I tell Jesus, he is not telling nobody. Yeah? But there's sometimes you have safe people. If you have a safe person, and any of the topics today evoke any emotion, negative emotion, contact your safe person and just have a conversation. Or say to them, can you keep checking on me this week, please? Because sometimes you don't have to tell people what you're going through, but you need to say to them, can you please keep checking on me this week? Can you call me every day or can we pray together? Can we have this discussion? In essence, I'm just asking you to look after yourself, yeah? Just in case anything we discuss will evoke any emotion. And finally, live in your truth. Even the discussion that was having, the Bible study that was having before I came here, the last comment my sister made was about living in your truth and the fear we have of even speaking about stuff because we don't feel safe. That safe space thing. Because if you don't feel safe, you won't be vulnerable. I'm not going to be vulnerable to someone who doesn't respect me, but it is important to live in your truth. I'm not saying to you, be wrong and strong. Yeah, so I'm a thief. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I was a thief. I am a thief. Lord, help me not to be a thief anymore. And you need to get someone you can be accountable to. Guess what? I went to the shop, I saw something, but I didn't take it. Let's rejoice with them. Yeah? Are we ready to keep going? Okay, let's go. Who am I? Who are you now? Anyone brave enough to tell me who they are now? Huh? Hold on.
I am me.
She is she. Who are you now?
Child of God.
Hallelujah. She's a child of God.
I am not what I used to be.
She is not what she used to be. And can I just say, as young people, we can still have, it may not feel like it's been a long time ago this happened, but we have a past still. Even if it's 6 months, or 2 weeks ago. You need to put it in your past if you're trying to move on from it. Yeah? Why do we find it so difficult to talk about our past? Why do we find it so difficult?
It's a bit like rapists and paedophiles. The society tends to stick with them and let them get by with things, and the victims are penalized.
Okay?
What should I say? If the past is good, it's all right. You can talk about it. The Bible says when you accept him, you remember your sins no more. You throw them away in the deepest part of the sea, and they won't rise again. So I don't like to discuss the bad past, because I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to have no memory of it. If it can help somebody, if it can help somebody, that's okay. But I find if it's going to destroy the person further, then I won't discuss my past, because, as I said, I repeat myself, Jesus said he doesn't remember them again. So why should you?
But isn't everything a learning experience? Bad and good?
Well, I think some people don't like talking about their past because they want people to continue to see them in this light, that I think if people will be more open, we would actually be able to like learn from other people's past. Yeah, I just think it's just, a lot of times it's a front that we just want to uphold, and so that no one knows the secret stuff that we've done.
Okay. Oh, 2, 1, 2.
I was just going to say, because we haven't dealt with it, we haven't overcome what we haven't dealt with it. We haven't dealt with it. And so that's why. But I agree with what Brother Colin said. You know, if we deal with it and we can then speak about it more freely, and we can help others to prevent them from making the same mistakes. If they are.
Yeah, it's similar, but not everyone find it difficult to talk about their past. But however, because, for example, I was brought up to think the past help you to make sense of the present help you to prepare for the future. So there is that element of use your past as a reference, not necessarily as a residence. So you have some people who may have difficulty to come out. And also you have some people who bring you back to the past rather than see how can I restore you to move on, you know? Okay, use your past as a reference, not a residence.
I like that.
Yeah.
I might copyright that, but I'll...
I was going to say it may be difficult to talk about your past because it may not actually be that much in the past. You may still actually be struggling with some of those very same things. So whilst it could be who you were, sometimes the past has a very way of catching up with you. So it's not in the past as much as you think it is.
I agree. So, guilt, shame, past sins, current sins, what you just said, Angela, it's no one's business. So because we feel this way, we're not prepared to share our story, our journeys that could help somebody else. So you will sit in church and watch a blended family. You all know what blended family is? So 2 people who've come together, who potentially have their own children, who've come together, and you watch them struggle because it's easier to pretend that you don't have a blended family yourself, because your kids will look like the man that you're married to now, but nobody knows that you weren't married to him when you had that child. So instead of helping somebody else on their way to say, it's okay, it will get easier, it's okay, have the right people around you, it's okay, this is how I dealt with it, You rather sit and watch someone else suffer than expose yourself because it looks really good that people think that you're one family. Say that again? Hold on.
Yeah, I say it's unfortunate because I could put it worse. I've seen situations where people came from abroad, suffer a lot, but then bounce back, and then they see newcomers suffering and they don't want to help them because they say, I suffer as well, so you need to get a piece of that. And to me, I come to them and I say, that's not ethical. I understand you suffered, but why do you want the other to suffer? So there is also that element of maybe selfishness or competition as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or you see people, someone's just had a baby. Oh no, it's out of wedlock. Let's gossip. Let's take them to the board. Let's drag them to the board. Yet, disfellowship or censor, yet 80% of the people on the board have had children out of wedlock, but nobody knows. 80%? Sometimes it's 100%. Sometimes everyone on the board has been through that same situation, but they have things to say. Yeah? Or their kids have had abortions, but they didn't want to talk about that because the child is not there for us to see. So guess what we will do? It didn't happen. If it's not there, it didn't happen. You need to come sit up here with me, you're making me walk up and down.
No, it's just that I may have to leave, but that's why. But however, it could be worse. Sometimes a decision could be, as someone said, disfellowshipping, and then you decide to censorship, and someone will say, oh, when it was my case, I was disfellowship, but now you're censoring this person, You have all kind of things going on as well. So.
Yep, bitter. People are bitter. Sometimes that's why they don't want to speak about their past, because they're really bitter, and they don't want to get better. So they just rather hold on to the bitterness of how they're feeling. Yes. It's up to you. It's up to you. What is shame? Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion typically associated with a negative evaluation of self, withdrawal, motivations, and feelings of distress, exposure, mistrust, powerlessness, and worthlessness. Is shame a killer? Why can it be? Okay, we have 2 comments coming.
Sometimes we get so consumed by it that it takes over our life. That becomes our focus. And we don't get past that. So that's who then we become. That's all we think about. That's all we see about ourselves.
I was just going to say the same thing. You don't really talk about shame. You don't share it with others, usually. Yeah, too ashamed to talk about it. And that's a problem. So it's negative stuff that just feeds on you. It's almost, it's self-destructive. Self-destroys.
I don't know. The funny thing about it, about shame is, and I think a good analogy of this, they say sometimes you're in a meeting and someone is up there saying the IGQ of the LMP and the SLT, and everyone's going, yes, yes. And then someone says, sorry, what does that all mean? And they said, oh, and then you don't even realize nobody in the room knew what they were talking about. But everybody felt shame because nobody wanted to feel that they were less knowledgeable than the next person. So they rather sit there. We rather sit in our seats and burn. We rather sit where we are and don't do anything about it than just actually admit, I don't understand. I don't think this is right. I've been there, so that's why I understand it, because we want to cover our shames. So, I've been brought here today and asked to talk about sex. That's the topic. Let's not hold on to our shame. Let's not hold on to our guilt. I'm not asking anyone to this is not a disclosure forum for anyone to make the disclosure, but I want us to have a frank conversation. Because somebody in this room needs to hear something today. I believe that. I don't know who it is, but I believe there's some learning that needs to take place here today, and somebody else in the room has that knowledge, has that experience sitting with them. So what is sex?
The meeting of two bodies, mainly male and female, for procreation.
Okay? And the Bible talks about sex. Yeah? There's loads and loads of examples. Now, the Bible sometimes uses words like they got to know each other. I think that's quite SDA of us, because, we like to not use the right words. We just use a different word. But for procreation is an enjoyment. Okay, so what is sex? Sex is PP, I like that. Procreation and pleasure. Oh, sorry. No. We need to hear.
No, I've never read about sex being pleasurable in the Bible. The only time I think it refers to sex being pleasurable is when Sarah says, Abraham's wife Sarah says, in my old age, I'm to experience pleasure. And I thought, so it was pleasurable to you at one stage. But I don't remember ever reading about it being pleasurable.
Anyone else have an opinion? Is sex meant to be pleasurable and for procreation as well? Songs of Solomon is a good example, yeah, of it, the pleasurable side of it. Okay, so why do we not talk about sex at church?
I think it goes over to the Victorian times. They were quite a prude lot, and it was time of empire. Anything that was here permeated throughout the empire. So if the English didn't talk about sex, then we didn't either. And it was worse in our community because a lot of the black woman's sexuality during slavery wasn't her own. She was raped by the white master and her body wasn't her own. And she had to breed with the black man to produce more slaves for the white master.
Am I right in saying that a lot of sex has been associated with trauma as to why it's not something that is spoken about often?
Well,
Yeah?
speak for mine. So I think sometimes we do talk about sex, but we talk about the don'ts. We never celebrate it for what it really is, like something that God has actually created. So I think, and this kind of maybe can lead to another tangent. So when a young adult has heard, don't have sex before marriage all their life, and then they finally get into a marriage where it's supposed to be celebrated, they don't know how to switch because it's been demonized so much that now I'm married, I'm in a relationship where sex is supposed to be enjoyable and it's allowed. How do I now switch from it's demonized, no, to it's something that's beautiful that God has created?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. I think it's... I know churches where they talk about sex, but also in relation to trauma, you have that aspect. You have also through the history, you have the Puritans or certain, for example, in Roman Catholicism, you have sex for procreation, not for pleasure. So you have this as well. And so, yeah, you have different, depending on where you are at and stuff. So you have all this taking place. You have places in certain forum, Adventist forum, where they will not talk, as mentioned. Every time we talk about sex, you report the negative, as mentioned. So it's about finding the balance and open up the discussion because I mean, personally, as I mentioned in one of our AYS, I was taught by my parents from the age of 9 about sexuality. We had books as well. Also, when you go to school, you present biology, all this aspect as well. So it's all depend on, sometimes people may not talk about it, or even how do babies come. Some people will, it's a crisis to explain to a child. So yeah, so it's all depend where you're coming from. But yeah, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's the background, Puritans or things, but yeah.
But sometimes it may not be my trauma, but it could be my parents' trauma.
Yeah.
That's been passed down to me.
Yeah.
So then it becomes my trauma, because then how it's taught to me is taught to me coming from a line of trauma.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Your parents not wanting to talk to you about sex and just saying, just don't do it. Or saying to you, don't let anybody touch you. Because they've been touched inappropriately by someone, so they then put boundaries in place for you because they don't want you to experience some of the things that they've experienced.
Yes, you have that. But for example, as a parent, I'm a parent. I explain to my children, boys, I have a son and 2 daughters. At a young age, I say, no, there are certain things that no one should touch you inappropriate. And I explain, and you need to call your teacher or your parents right away. It's not. So I explain those things as well to my children at their young age. So it's about addressing that as well. But also I met some people who will tell, oh, don't trust boys, you know, and then I say, wow, you're generalizing on boys, you know, and then you have all this as well because of their experience and stuff. And to me, I say, yeah, but what about the ladies? Because sometimes some ladies are manipulated, are not to be trusted. So I'm not bringing one against the other, but I'm trying to, because my parents brought me like that in saying that, yeah, we have some bad experience, but you may not. The same thing for your neighbors. My parents may have issues with the neighbors, but she will come, my mom will say, you tell them good morning, good evening, you be polite with them. So it's how you brought up as well on certain issues.
It is, you know, and I can say, I was blessed because my mom is a nurse, and so when it came, when I started my period, she sat me down, she drew me a diagram, and she says, "This is what happens every month, why this happens, and nothing goes there." Yeah. However, throughout my upbringing, she will have very frank and open and honest conversations with us because of where she was coming from. So I remember when I started secondary school, and my best friend at the time said to me, "I think I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, what do you mean?" And she said to me, "I kissed the boy." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "You can't get pregnant that way." But she had been told by her parents that if you kiss a boy, you're going to get pregnant. And she believed that. But you know, we say that, oh, that's what people back home, or that's a long time ago. But that's still happening now. Because there's still a lot of people who don't quite understand how it all happens or how it's all put together. So let me then ask the question, when is the best time to explore sex? The conversation, the guidance. When's the best time?
Yes, I think you do need to have the conversation about sex with children. I know some people are against children as young as 4 or 5 knowing about these things, but if you don't have the conversation with them, someone else will have an interaction with them. And when I say interaction, it's not to be like it's not always sexually negative or intended that way, but children explore. At our church the other day, or maybe it was here, someone spoke about the nursery wanting the children to be naked. It wasn't here, it was at Croydon. Wanting the children in the nursery to be able to play, naked and free and stuff. That was a nursery, and that was coming down from the infrastructure. But even if you take that away, I just think children need to understand their bodies and understand like for me, my mum always said, similar to what the gentleman said here, this is your body, this belongs to you. No one has the right to do X, Y, or Z. These are your private parts. These are, there's certain things you do need to know because some people don't know, and then other children or even people that are not children can take advantage, and they don't know anything. And a lot of people who sometimes find themselves in situations of, teen pregnancy or, dating older guys or even getting into sex work or something like that, it's because they were not appropriately informed. They were not appropriately informed, and I think then you're kind of just wrapped in whatever the world has told you. Happy to add more because I know some people's faces are looking a bit scared, but I'm saying this for, multiple reasons.
Okay.
So can I also just pick up on one thing? I'm coming to you next, sir, that I think we don't talk a lot about, and we need to: consent. It is not okay for someone just to touch you because they want to. It is not okay. It is, I can say no at any point, and you must listen to me. No is a very direct, straight command. I'm coming to you next after this brother. It's very important that when we're teaching growing up, to explain to people that consent word, because if we don't talk about consent, people don't then understand what no, stop, I do not like it means. Another thing is very important to do as well is call the parts of their body by the medical term. I'll tell you why. I'll give you a quick example. A friend of mine who works in a nursery told us a story of this little girl who kept coming in saying, "Draw the curtains, no, draw the curtains." And everybody was absolutely didn't know. So they spoke to the mom and she keeps talking about drawing the curtains. And she said, well, I don't know what that means because she has blinds in her room. Mom had a boyfriend who was coming in at nighttime and telling her to open the curtains. Yeah? And because she didn't know how appropriately, she couldn't verbalize what was happening to her because she was so young. So I'm a full advocate in us calling the names of the parts of the body as the doctor tells us they are. No sunshine and flowers business. Sorry, sir.
Yeah. In relation to what was said is, we have to be aware that now under sex education, there are several things that's being presented to our children, whether in primary school or even though you have to request consent for from the parents. So, and sometimes some parents do not. And me personally, I will ask to speak with the teacher and also have the curriculum and find out. So, and the school will request parents to have an appointment. And so you have the right to request that, but sometimes people don't. And you need to know that even with everything going on with all the LGBTQ or transgenderism, there are certain elements that's, or as some people will say, agenda taking place. But however, we still have a right to request certain things, and consent is important. Sometimes some people have issues with certain terms, because me, I'm French speaking, so I didn't know what Wally mean. But at least because I remember we had an internet presentation, and so now I did understand, but I understand that they were using that term for children. But I had to explain to my children as well, the medical term as well. So it's important for us to address. If we don't know something, we could research, because yes, some children may know more than their parents. However, parents could still discuss and find out elements. But it's important because there are things going on that you need to be aware.
Okay, thank you.
Willie. Yeah, Willie, sorry. I mean, I say Wally, but talking about a movie, but Willie, yeah. But also to teach about consent, they had the example of tea. If you say no to tea, don't force that. But just to go deeper, because I'm dealing in my field, I'm dealing also with cases. So there was also someone wondering when can you say no, and if because I explained to them, even if you're both naked and one of you even excited and everything, both of you are excited, and one of you say no, you have to respect that, because it will fall into sexual assault.
But you know what's really important?
Yeah.
That we have those conversations about that.
Yeah.
Because, and it's important also to explain to girls, as well as boys,
yeah, please,
that
thanks.
When a man gets to a certain point, he is not thinking straight. So, no. Let me finish before I get there, yeah?
No.
Go
ahead. Please, continue.
Let me finish.
Let not your heart be troubled.
My friend says, let me get to my full stop.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you can prevent yourself from getting into a position where he's not hearing you, it's still wrong. It's still wrong. Make sure you're very clear from very early. However, set your boundaries. That's what I'm saying to you. So, set your boundaries very clear, because sometimes they can use that as an excuse. It's not an excuse, but if you understand how some men work, you'll put yourself into a very dangerous position, because you're saying, shouting, screaming, no, and they're not hearing it. Hold on 2 seconds, because my sister needs to...
What was your question again? What age do you explore sex? Is that what? Explore sex, right, okay. In what respect are you talking about?
In any respect.
Right, are you talking about on a biblical basis?
In any aspect.
Well, I would say, I might be old-fashioned, but I will say, if you're talking on a biblical aspect, I would say of age when that young person is married. I don't know about outside, because outside they act differently they should act differently from the church. Most times they act differently from inside the church.
Okay, so let me throw that question out. We should start exploring sex when someone is married in a biblical manner. That's the time. Do you mean doing? Do you mean actually? Hold on. Okay, hold on, guys. Hold on. Let's get some clarity here. So you mean actually interacting, or do you mean having conversations?
No.
What did I actually mean? Conversations. Sorry. So I meant conversations.
You did mention it. You did mention
that because the answers that you were getting, it wasn't really based on conversation.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm happy to stand corrected, but I thought
No,
I was clear.
you did mention it. Because some of us ask and you say, when is the best time to explore sex? And you say to discuss.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're having this.
So,
okay,
yeah.
So do you still stand by? Let's have a discussion about sex once you get that ring on your finger, and you've been married and you've had the reception, and then that's when you see each other. You're like, "Hi, let's talk about sex."
is that on a biblical basis?
All I can get on a biblical basis. On a biblical basis.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
hold on. Let my sister.
I was just going to say, I think starting to have the discussion about sex on your wedding night, it's already too late. Because both of us have already come into this space with either really high-end, unrealistic expectations of what this is going to be, or we've already come here with absolutely no idea what we're doing, which could also lead to more harm and us not having the language to explain to each other what needs to happen. I think it is at every stage of our life, there needs to be a sex conversation that happens, because just like at school, in primary school, we didn't know that negative integers existed, but when you went to secondary school and university, you find out that they are negative integers, they're imaginary numbers, right? So as a younger child, there's certain things that us as parents or carers or whatever have to teach children about sex. And then as they get older, we add on to that information so that not only are they informed of their own bodies and their own sexuality, their own being, but can engage with other individuals, whether it's going to be their husband or their wife in the future, with the right knowledge, with the right expectations of what's going to happen. Because let's be realistic, right? In this world that we live in, we're overly sexualized as a society, as a people. If I never have a conversation about what sex is going to look like in my marriage, whether with my mom, with my sisters in church or whatever, I am going to arrive in that marriage thinking that I need to be screaming, shouting, climbing on top of walls for my man to be entertained. He's also going to be engaging with me with an overly pornographic view of what women are supposed to be. And actually, in reality, that's not who we are. And then on top of that, and I think as Christian women, we even have an added layer of the shame of sex that we are indoctrinated into within our church. So let me not say a lot, but there are a number of Christian women that have shared their experiences with feeling shame of even having sex in that marriage setting. So when we do not have the conversations, we're putting our daughters into positions where they are going to be literally glorified sex dolls in their marriages, and we don't want that.
And can I also add, my brother and my sister, can I also ask also, in marriage, the shame of saying no? It's illegal, but the shame, some women have been raised that they cannot say no to their husbands. Or their husbands come into a marriage being told that she cannot say no to me.
You could be raped in a marriage context.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
my
what
brother,
I wanted,
then my sister.
Oh.
Yeah, no, you're first, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to mention when I said the no, even though if you're naked and aroused and one of you say no, you have to respect the no. I understand you mentioned about because it falls into sexual assault or even rape. And I'm talking about both sides, male or female, because I have cases where men are being raped by women. The same way so even though you mentioned yes, men have they cannot think or something, yeah. But this, okay, you'll deal with biology in terms of sexual organs, external and internal. So you need a process of arousal. But yeah, that's another element. But it's good to discuss about that. So yeah, so I just wanted to bounce back on this because sexual assault can be both ways. So yeah, and sometimes people will feel that, oh, because we were naked and we were already into coming up to it, but if one of them say no, respect the no.
And that's why I love the tea consent video, because it says, if I make a cup of tea, if you tell me you wanted a cup of tea, and I make the cup of tea, the kettle is boiled, I pour the cup of tea, and I bring you the cup of tea, and you say to me, no, you can't force me to drink that cup of tea.
Yeah, just one last. Yeah.
No is no.
Yeah, and just one last thing. Sex is not just about the act of penetration. It goes beyond that as well.
So I just want to say also, like, we also have to realize the era and where we're living, and I think Cyan said it earlier, we're actually fighting against actual agendas. As early as 2 years old, you have Daddy and Dad, a whole book about two men who are married who are raising a child as if it's okay. You have teachers talking about it's okay to be, you don't have to identify as a woman. You can be a man. You can be even an ex if you want to. You can be whatever you want, right? And you also have, for example, I recently just seeing on Facebook, some libraries have where like they have these programs. Well, I don't know about the UK. I can only speak about the US. But these programs where they sometimes have like drag queens come and read to little children in the libraries, right? About books about drag queens. So if we're not having these conversations, but we're being bombarded by all this information that is against, if you want to look at the biblical perspective, against Bible, how are we going to kind of defend against it if we don't have those conversations early on?
So where do we start having these conversations? Home? I'm hearing home? I'm home? So is church home? Church home? Okay, hold on. I'm seeing. Brother, call whoever you need to call and tell him you're not going anywhere. Sorry. Sorry, my sister.
Church is not home, but it's behind safe four walls.
Ooh.
Should be.
Okay, yep.
And a safe place. The note I made to remind myself what the question says. When is the best time to explore sex? And that is, for me, from being a parent, and when the first time I approached my parents, it was when you showed interest and you started asking questions. So your parents would explain to you, depending on the type of parents you have.
Yeah.
Which we've already explored. Now, the way that you would answer that question would depend on what materials you have. Because for me, I use books for my children. I also encourage them to use the description, proper name. Yeah, not oh, that thing, as what my parents told me, but my dad was quite open. But for us, it's good that we're here having this discussion because we've had it here, this discussion, over 3 different eras. Some of the children, young people are here, so I hope it had done them good. We're here now because we're becoming their seniors, yeah? And we would like to know that some of us as adults, they would come to us when they've got any concerns regarding physical contact, because that's what really, where it starts. But the feelings and the emotions is what needs to be addressed when you're experiencing what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? And the other thing that I was sharing with Auntie Brenda is society is forcing parents not to have the control over what they teach their children at the right age or when the child is ready. And advertisement is another, the entertainment world, because some of the advertisement that they use sexual connotation to say, even, let me use an example of a car, for example. They often use a woman to display the car. So what is that saying? So that's really conjuring up the feelings and the thought in the child or the young person before they're even ready for that sort of exposure. So we as parents need to be mindful to start taking note of our children and spend more time with our children, because that's another thing that I find parents of today don't seem to have, so that they leave
Can I just jump in just to say to you, we sometimes say parents of this day and age. However, back in the day, parents had 2-3 jobs.
But they had time. They had time for their
Did
children.
they? Did a lot of them have time?
Well, I'm speaking for myself, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why.
Okay.
Because my mother came here as a teacher,
Mhm.
but she didn't get a job as a teacher.
Mhm.
My father came here as a carpenter,
Mhm.
but he didn't get a job as a carpenter. My dad only ever had one job. My mother had 2 and 3 jobs. Yeah? But guess what? My mother fitted in time to spend with us in that dinner time was dinner time. And during dinner time, you had your conversation about what happened throughout the day, your things that's concerning you. And I'm saying what I said because I do have contact with families now who don't set time to eat together. They eat on whenever they feel like it. And that's where I'm not talking about church people, because we do have some organizational set times in our homes. But I can't speak for everybody. But I'm speaking for those whom I have contact with outside who are struggling for their child or children to listen to them because they don't feel that they have that jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you so much. So should the education of sex in a family, there's a sister at the back, should it be like tumbleweed? And when I say that, let's not wait for the motions. Actually, we start off slowly, as they, you know what I mean? And we're just building up momentum as they're getting older. So by the time they are of that age, when the hormones are going strong in the body, they're already comfortable with talking to you. You're already comfortable because not everyone can have those conversations. They're not comfortable conversations to have. Even this, I know some people are in here thinking, she's still talking about this? Yeah? So they're not comfortable conversations to have. So if that's the case, isn't it something that we should be building up momentum so when the time comes, the child is not afraid to say, Mom, oh my goodness, this has happened, not feeling judged, not feeling shame, not feeling anything else, but they can have that conversation and it not just be brushed under the carpet.
Yeah, I was going to say, just following on from John's point about spending time, it is true, we should do that, but I recognise, I mean, my parents didn't because they were always working. My mum worked nights, my dad worked in days, and when they split up, it was just my mum, so I didn't have that. But the difference today is the society is very, very different today than it was when I was a child. So I wasn't exposed to things that young children and young people are exposed to now. We didn't have sex on our phones. We didn't have these phones. I had 3 channels at first, TV channels growing up. So we didn't have the access to sex that young people do now. We didn't have the influences that you've got on TikTok, on Instagram and blah, you name it. We didn't have any of that. So we didn't have it all in your face like they do now. So I think one of the things that we've got to do, which we have to be different about, it is true, it is trying to find that time where we might not have got, because I mean, I think I used to like to keep my child busy because the more busy she was, she's away from all that type of nonsense. And yes, as a parent, I would have been going into school anyway, because that's one thing my parents did do, but that was because we were growing up in a racist area, so they were in the school about different things and different topics and things that we were kept away from and that kind of thing. So that kind of thing was in me already, so I always knew what books she was reading. If it was something I didn't agree with, I'd go into school and I would tell them, and they would apologise. You know, I'd say, I'm sorry, that wasn't appropriate, you know, so you do have to have that involvement in children and young people's lives. But yeah, this is a topic where it's age appropriate, but there's different stages of a child's life where it's appropriate to say and explain certain things about. But it's getting to a point where you have to say a little bit more earlier just because of what you're going to be exposed to. Because I know it. I know what young people are exposed to. I'm working as a governor, I know things that happen. I work for mentoring young people as well. So I know what happens. They were exposed to sex a lot earlier than what we were. It's a completely different culture, completely different time. And I can't remember who someone else mentioned about the things now that they want you to believe is normal. All this trans foolishness. It's foolishness. But there are actually people in the secular world that speak out, that are very vocal about saying it's foolishness. And they get ridiculed, they get all sorts of things. But they are people, secular people, that are standing up to that agenda because they realise there is an agenda going on. There is something happening in society today that we all need to open our eyes to, because I see it all the time. And sometimes it's like incredulous. You're thinking, what is this? What's going on? But yeah, there is an indoctrination that is happening out there to make you want to accept that these things are normal. It's natural. You can be what you want to be. No, it's not the case.
Thank you. And can I also add, and I see the hand in the corner, can I also add there's a difference between static porn and visual moving porn? Because the visual images that people are seeing now is impacting the way that they view sexual interaction. So you have boys and girls thinking they know what it's meant to be like because of what they've seen, and that's not real. There's cameras, there's contracts, there's money exchanges, and it's for the camera. So it's very different to what they're being taught, to what actually reality is and what it should be. My sister at the back.
Hi. I just my main question is, I know we're discussing talking to our children, but my question is, as a parent, why would it be so uncomfortable to have these kind of questions or conversations with your child? This is a child this is your child. You should be able to speak to them about any and everything. I mean, my mum is a lot old. She's a senior. And I remember having full and frank discussions with her. There was no embarrassment. She made it funny. It was just so different. So when I saw my peers who had different conversations, it was mind-blowing to me. So even now with my own son, I have very full and frank discussions with him. He's 12. Obviously, it's age appropriate, but I catch it before the school catch him.
Yep.
He's been presented with pornographic material.
Yep.
So I have to speak to him about it. And then also, his body is changing. So he's having these questions because my body is changing. This is happening to me. I need to be able to say this is why, and not be embarrassed and, oh no, I can't talk about it now. So if we're having this conversation today and people are a bit, oh, I'm not sure, then we've lost the battle, I think, because they're going to learn somewhere else. We have to be honest, really and truly.
And you know, it's really sad. I've seen your hand. My brother, again, his hand's up. I totally hear what you're saying, but I think it's really sad that a lot of people will still tell you they're not having these conversations. You work with young people and they will tell you they don't talk about this stuff with their parents. Their parents don't talk about it. So you will have girls learning that mom has a friend over, and I hear stuff next door. And that's how they know, and then somebody at school tells them what their mom is doing next door, and then they start. So then when they grow, that is their reference point, because the conversations aren't had for a variety of reasons. It's just not being had.
Yeah, sorry, I will have to go. I had already
You don't have to go. No, I'm not going to keep you.
I have already
much
two
longer.
messengers coming to me, but just to bounce back, you have the element of some parents, they relieve their trauma or sometimes their bad experience, so they find it difficult. So that's why sometimes you have this, how wish is for parents to take on board and ask for help as well. So it depends, because you have cases of parents working, but at least if they have a network of friends that you know, and sometimes the church could be the place as well, because it's an extension, as someone mentioned it. It's an extension of the family, and also you have members who don't have family members who share the same faith, or you know, or have been rejected, and so the church become their family. So you have this to take into consideration, but it's important to have that discussion, because the world is so fast in certain things, and sometimes people are surprised. How do you know that? And you know, so it's bad. But one thing about pornography, it's a stage act. So when you deal with pornography, you will notice that there are certain type of people, certain time of body, certain time of genitals that it's requested. There are also other matters that we could discuss about another time, but at least it's to understand that those are not reality. And so it's a stage, so you need to educate our children, but also other people. I mean, yeah, but I have to go. I'm sorry.
I think the other
but,
thing that came up a few times here is I think we also need to educate those who are going into marriages as well. Because there's that expectation that people have when they get married, that, okay, we've had the wedding, I'm in my nice white nightie, it's going to be perfect. And at that point, they realize, no, it's not perfect, because we both have different expectations. And then you're having trouble within your marriage very early on because it's not something that's been dealt with.
Yeah, it's important to talk, but also to understand that sex is not just the act, and also it's about arousal, it could be painful, it could be also understanding your body, because sometimes for women, because the genitals are internal, sometimes lubrication is important for the sexual act. And sometimes, because of certain dysfunctional, you may have the need to have some spray or some... Yeah, so it's about understanding that. And yeah, so at least sometimes you may request the help of professional, you may, sorry, I have to go.
And again,
really, I have to go.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for your input this afternoon. And again, it's that thing of, if we're not talking about it at home, where are we talking about it? Because even if we take it out of the context and put it into the marriage, and we're talking about it in a marital context, who's having those discussions? Oh, crickets. No. I'm saying no one's having a discussion. That's what I'm saying. It's gone quiet. We're not having those discussions, but we have high expectations. And when marriages don't work, when things don't happen, we say, well, you didn't pray enough. Were you not reading every morning? We were reading every morning, we were praying every morning, but we had other issues, and I didn't know who to talk to about it. And we sometimes have the knowledge in the room. So we have people in this room who have had issues. Imagine, the gentleman just now was speaking about lubrication. How many people have had a conversation with someone in church or even outside church because they're having an issue and someone can give them advice in relation to it? You may not think right here now is the best place to have that discussion, but it's important that it's a discussion that we're having. It's an open dialogue, and it's not a closed discussion that no one talks about, but when things go wrong, everyone wants to talk about it. The next two questions, I need to move this along because I've realized we've been here a while. What was sex then? What is sex now? Same thing, nothing new under the sun. There's nothing that's been brought in now that hasn't been there before. What have you learned from sex? That's something I would say to you to reflect on. How can sex be seen as self-harm? And I don't want to brush over this, but I want us to, how can sex be seen as self-harm?
You haven't touched on sexually transmitted diseases and AIDS.
Nope. We haven't touched on, and it wasn't part of the agenda today, but as we're talking about self-harm, there's some people who have sexually transmitted diseases and willingly transmit it to others because they're angry. Self-harm? Or is that self-harm or harming, like when you're harming other people?
Oh, maybe both. But I was just gonna say that I feel like sex is now, it can be used to like trap people into like a cycle. And then once you kind of like get into that cycle, you yourself are trapped into that. So you're seeking the next thing. So yeah, I just think sex can be very self-harm, and I think it could be a harm to other people as well.
If you're in a marriage and you're not enjoying the sex that you're having, but you're continuously having it because it's making the other person happy, but it's not satisfying your needs, is that self-harm?
I was just going to say, I think because sex is not just a one thing, because it has a pleasurable side, then it could be used as self-harm if you're using it to avoid what is actually going on, because you get a temporary high, and then you go back into the sort of toxicness or whatever it is. So you're not dealing with the issue, but you're using sex as like a shield.
I met a girl who said that she can't engage in sexual intercourse unless she's drunk. Off her face, drunk. So every time she's ever had sexual intercourse, she has been drunk. Is that self-harm? That may be an extreme for some, but I'm sure we can all think of a different context we can put it in and then sit and think, actually, you know what? That's harmful to self. It's not done out of love. What I'm doing, I'm not doing it because I love my husband or I love my wife. I'm ticking a box. Or I'm ticking their box, but not my box. Do we tend to judge ourselves by the actions of our past? What are the consequences of not making peace with our sexual past? Sometimes some have not been perfect in life and have had experience, whether it was forced or whether it was consensual, and haven't made peace with that. Then enter a marriage and they haven't dealt with that. What's the consequences of it? How do we, I feel like I'm rushing, and I don't like that feeling, but I need you to really think on these questions that I'm asking, because they're very important questions. Because we sometimes lock our experiences in a box, think we've buried it at the bottom of the ocean, and then all of a sudden, the box pops up when you least expect it. And it impacts you, and then you take it out on somebody else. And they say, hurt people. We don't deal with it, so then we just give it to somebody else, and they don't even know why you are shouting and screaming at them. They don't know why you haven't cooked for 3 months. And they're like, we're meant to be married here. And they think it's them, and actually it's you. What are the consequences of not making peace with our sexual past? Even if it's a non-sexual past that has impacted you. Does that make sense? I'm used to running now.
Hi there, just wanted to make a couple of points. I think the first point is about the church and discussing sex and the way that the church approaches sex. I think that the church, and the second point was about the separation of the problem, in my view, with how the world deals with sex is I'll do that point first and I'll do the first one second. I think the problem what I would like to see happen more in church is the teaching of what the proper way, the good way, the godly way of this is. So a lot of time when we talk about sex, we talk about the fact that we don't talk about sex. And that may well be true, but what I would like to see us do is to then talk about it in a good way. And I would say, my view is that sex is inextricable from love. That's God's ideal. I think that the mess up of the world is the separation between love and sex. Separates it. So even in some of our discussion, a husband says that he expects sex from his wife. He's separated sex and love. So let's say there's no love between you, but you still expect sex. So for me, that person needs to be taught the inextricable link between sex and love. Then he will be better off. He will see sex as an outpouring of the love that they have for each other. It's a working out of their love. I think that's what God intended.
Can I just add to that, Sammy? And when we're teaching love, to me there's only one definition of love, and that's Corinthians 13. Because I think then it makes sense.
Yes.
Love is patient, love is kind.
Absolutely.
So if you're teaching that with every aspect, you're teaching something deep right there.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that how we respond to real love and real kindness, and when someone just goes out their way for you, sometimes you want to give them a hug, you want to give them a present. And I think that's how I think we should be teaching what sex is about. It's the outpouring of, it's the expression, it's the language of love. It's a language of love, a special language of love that God has given to married people who are in love. But if you take away the love, then you shouldn't expect sex. I think it's important for that to be taught, because the world teaches sex separate from love. The world has separated sex from love. When people say that Britain don't talk about sex, my experience is different. My experience is that Britain is sex obsessed. It's sex obsessed. Sex is everywhere. It was everywhere when I was growing up, and it's certainly everywhere now. It's all over the place. I remember being a young child watching St. Trinian's programs about these girls. It's a different era then, but girls who wore these tiny little skirts to school, and there was all these men. It was just, that was the norm. Benny Hill was on primetime TV, 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. Benny Hill was titillating sexual experiences separate from love. You look at when the lads magazines came out in the 90s, Loaded and what were the other, I can't remember the other magazines, always a girl on the front. Cosmopolitan magazines, the women's magazines, scantily clad woman on the front. Page 3, The Sun, The Star. In Britain, sex is everywhere. And I think that what we as a church, I think, need to do to separate, not to separate ourselves from the world, but to help us, take us in the right direction and away from the distortion of the world, which is messing people up and has been messing people up for eons, is to bring back the link between sex and love.
Good point. Good points. Good points.
Thank you. Really love that point that was shared by Uncle Sammy as well, because I think going back to what the lady said earlier about, why are some parents uncomfortable to talk to their children about sex? I think that a lot of us, we've got to a place where we think if we talk about it, it's going to make it happen, and not realizing that actually having those kind of conversations help to create a healthier outlook on what sex is, where it's supposed to take place, who is it for, and once people get into that space, what that can begin to look like. And I think that one of the biggest kind of cloaks that Satan has over us is us being scared of sex and putting it on this pedestal, where we can't talk about it because we either have had no proper education about sex, or we've had sexual trauma, or we've had sexual embarrassment. And so all these things cause us to want to run away from it. But I think going back to the question of, the consequences of not making peace. As I said, one of them is not being able to speak about it with maybe your children or those that you need to. But I think also we need to look at, or this is maybe moving on to the next question, but I think it's important for us to look at, if you have had a sexual past, what was it that, you know, especially if you're someone that has struggled with that as a sin or is struggling with it, what is it that sex does for you? Are you having sex for validation? Are you having sex for escapism? Are you having sex for adventure? You know, and whatever form that is, whether it's masturbation, pornography, intercourse, oral, whatever it is, I think the sooner we can identify our relationship with sex, however that looks like, the sooner we are able to actually recognize, you know, just as was mentioned, sex is a language, but you might see someone and it's not sex you need to have. You might, you know, just might be a hug, or it could be, you know, you feel trapped and it's not sex that you need to go and do. You need to, I don't know, do therapy or, you know, go on a holiday. Sometimes I think sex has become like, because it's in our faces so much, something that we've now used as a vice, but then we also are uncomfortable to reveal, because if the more we talk about it, the more we open up, you know, something that we potentially either struggle with or something that's going to make us look bad, or just things that, as has mentioned, you know, we haven't actually dealt with. So yeah, I think something that can help us is also identifying our relationship with sex, and then from there, making the necessary steps.
And I think, to me, the link with self-harming is about, what am I lacking? What am I lacking? So what am I trying to replace that lack with? And for some it might be sex, but it could be food, it could be people, it could be, you know what I mean? It could be, let me not read my Bible. Yeah, because I'm lacking something, and me being further away from God will allow me to focus on whatever, in opposed to pushing yourself closer to Him, to ask, telling Him to fill that lack. How do you make peace with your sexual past to prevent us from living in fear or fantasy? And I think that's the thing. Am I living in fear or am I living in a fantasy? What should we do with our experiences and shame? What should we do with it? Put it on the altar? But sometimes we need to face them. But I'm not asking to face them alone. Face them with Jesus. Sometimes we need to face our shames, face our experiences. Let's deal with them. Let's unpack it. Why did I do that? Why did I experience that? Why did I put myself in danger? Why did I go to that party knowing I shouldn't have been at that party and do what I did at that party? Why? So what advice would you give your younger self, and why? Wait for Mr. Right? Sometimes people say, I'm enough. And I think that's something that we don't hold on to enough. Because Jesus died for me, I am enough. Because Jesus is in heaven preparing a place for me, I am enough. Because I can do all things.
Now, I just want to add, like, also forgiveness and vulnerability. So forgiveness for yourself when you do mess up, because I feel like a lot of times we do demonize things and keep people in this bubble. Once someone messes up, now that sin is held over their heads, when actually in the Bible, God says once you ask for forgiveness, it's as if you've never done it. So having that forgiveness, that same forgiveness that God has for you, have it for yourself. And then having that vulnerability to open up to God, but also open up to someone trusted and talk to them about what's actually going on. Because as the UK says, if you see something, say something, right? And if you don't say anything, how are other people going to know that you do need the help that you really need? So
I hope you see how we full circled from the beginning of this conversation, how we're looping right back, because we started with Rahab and her experience. Sammy?
Advice to your younger self. I think that's a great question. You could almost do a whole AYS on that. That's a really, really good question. What I would say to my younger self, thinking about my teenage self, I think I would tell him that you're okay and you're going to be okay. Because I think looking back, I did so many things to be okay. I had no idea that I was already okay. So the thing talked about earlier about parents talking to their children, I think that that's really, really, really crucial. Because like if your parents don't talk to you, you can easily get your sense of self from comparing yourself to what you see on the TV and from what people tell you about yourself. And you might not get a whole lot of validation from those places. And I think a lot of us do a lot of the nonsense that we do to be okay. And then we find out the thing we did to be okay made us worse than we were. And we were already okay. So I would tell my younger self that you're okay and you're going to be okay. And I would try and find some words to tell my younger self about the value of waiting. Waiting for the right time and letting things fully mature. I rushed ahead on so many different things. Trying to have it now. So many different things. And it generally was a mess. It didn't work. I didn't actually enjoy it. I went on holidays I couldn't afford. And then when we're on the holiday, by the end of the holiday, we're going McDonald's for the $2 meal. Because it was a double cheeseburger and chips meal. Because that's all we could afford. You know, and you're on holiday and you're living on the breadline. So many things, you just rush ahead, you rush. So I would tell my younger self to wait. It's gonna come and it's gonna be sweeter if you wait for the right time for it.
Yeah, I would say roughly the same thing as Elder Sammy. I wished I had a stronger relationship with God, because I would, like you said earlier, ask God to fill the void. That's what I would have. But the thing is, knowing me, I wouldn't have had the patience for that. So going back to sex, I let thoughts of sex permeate my mind. And I had arguments with God, and I said to God, I'm not a nun. You know, I'm not a nun. And why should I live like this? I'm not married, you know, not even in a relationship, but I would have these discussions with God. I was angry because I was on my own. But I lived in a certain way. So I lived the church life. This is when I became a Christian, not in my teens, as a younger adult. And then I lived a secular life. And this is how I was happy with that life. But the Bible says you cannot serve two masters. You will either love one and hate the other. And I started to resent God because I thought he was restricting my life. And so I'm really saying this because you said you hope someone gets something out of this. And so I really don't want anyone to be like, sex, it's just magnificent, because it's not. Especially when you don't, because actually I did kind of use sex to harm myself, because I thought, God, I'm on my own, I'm just gonna, you know, I don't care. And, you know, that wasn't good for me at all, you know, it wasn't good for me at all. So God does really care about our bodies and how we think about sex. It's really important to him. Everything's really important. You know, everything that's important to us is important to him, and he kind of addresses those issues in whichever way he chooses. But that's my learning, that my experience taught me that he really wants us to respect ourselves, our sexuality, everything. That's really important. And I can't think of anything else to say, but even after my mistake and all that, I have a God who I can run to and say, whatever, I can't even think of what I say, but I have a God that I can turn to and say, you know, whatever it is I need to say, and he is there, and he is taking me through what he needs to, I really wish I could articulate it better, but God is so magnificent that he warns, like he will warn you. He warned me, don't do this because it's not for you. Because even though I became very absorbed with the idea of sex because I wasn't doing anything with my life, anything with my spiritual relationship with God, I wasn't doing anything with that. So of course that's going to fizzle out. And then the other side is going to take over. Because I wasn't doing anything, I kind of got misled. I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to say, but anyway, he warns you before you do this thing, and you still do it, and you go, but then he's there to catch you so that you do not fall. This is the God we serve. He's like really, really amazing, because the amount of things he's done to me, and it's like done for me, and it's like I feel like I've kicked dust in his face, because really, what I should have been saying is, look how I was ill, and he healed me. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I prayed. I wasn't Christian at the time. He took that away. I had really bad acne on my face, really bad. I said for about 3 years I suffered with this. I was on antibiotics. He took that away. I could have been talking about all these things. Instead, I was mucking about with, just foolishness. But because I was in two camps, my mind wasn't fixed on God. But
that's important.
But yeah, it is. It's important not to play around. Yeah. But I just want to say, God, I really thank you, and you are amazing, and he's always there for us. I'm not saying go and do your foolishness and then run back to God, because it scars you. And even though he's forgiving and everything, you still have an experience that plays on your mind.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. God works through people like Rahab, whom we tend to reject. God remembers her because of her faith and not her profession. If at times you feel like a failure, remember that Rahab rose above her situation through her trust in God, and you can do the same. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. So what if I am? This is not the end of your story. I am his, and he is mine, fearfully and wonderfully made. I am an overcomer. I have a story to tell you how Jesus set me free. Let's stand and pray. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for every single person who has listened, who has taken part, who have reflected this afternoon. You see the bits of us that no one else sees. The fact that we are here is part of your plan, not a mistake, not an accident. So, dear God, help us to remember our bodies are yours. Help us to remember that you love us with an everlasting love. Help us to remember, because of you and what you've done, we are enough. This is our prayer in your precious name, Jesus. Amen. Please be seated. Thank you so much for staying. Sorry to keep you so long. Remember, if you need to have a conversation with that safe person this evening, call them, find them. If you need to reflect on anything, keep yourself safe. Thank you very much.